Hi, my name's Andrew Rains. I'm a wine educator and part of the team at Okanagan Crush Pad Winery, and today I'm very excited to take you on a virtual tasting of 4 fun and delicious wines from Bizou Yukon. Okanagan Crush Pad have been pioneers of organic viticulture for quite some time, resulting in us owning 3 of our own certified organic vineyard sites. Beyond organic viticulture, we're also very passionate about regenerative farming, which allows our vineyard sites to have closer harmony with the wildlife that also resides in the area. At our certified organic winery, we're also some of the first ones to use concrete and clay amphora as fermentation vessels, and also using native fermentations to start the winemaking process. Despite all the innovation and amazing things happening at the winery and at our vineyard sites, the number one question that Christine Coletta, co-owner of Okanagan Crush Pad, would receive is how are Bizou and Yukon? Now, Bizou and Yukon are real dogs. I've met them myself, and they play a very important role at Garnet Valley Ranch, despite the fact that they are inching closer to retirement. So we have sheep at Garnet Valley Ranch, whose job it is to mow the lawn. They go from site to site out of our vineyards, and Bizou and Yukon follow along in their mobile doghouse. Now, despite what you might be picturing of a doghouse, I promise you this is probably a lot bigger and maybe even a little bit more plush as well. There's even a leather couch, which is mostly used by Bizou to lounge around on. So the dogs play an important role, and the idea behind these labels came from Christine Coletta wondering what the dogs might be up to, whether she was in London, England, or down in Vancouver at a trade show, thinking about what types of shenanigans Bizou and Yukon would be up to when nobody was watching. So the wines are fun and fictional depictions of the adventures of Bizou and Yukon, but also show some of the important things that we do in our vineyard sites that represent integrative pest management, which will be reflected with the butterflies on the label. And then you might even see the dogs being abducted by aliens, which of course is Christine Coletta's imagination running wild. Each wine has 4 different labels depicting these adventures. Now, despite the fun and fictional labels, I promise you these wines are seriously delicious. So we'll go through the 4 different wines, starting with the Bizou Bubbles. We'll then get into the white wine, which is the Gris, followed up by the Rosé, which is the Pinkie Rosé, and finally finishing off with the red wine, the Franc. I always like to say there's no better place to start a wine tasting than with some sparkling wine. The Bizou Bubbles is lively and refreshing wine made from traditional sparkling wine varietals grown in Summerland in Oliver, British Columbia. It's also made in the Charmat method, which is commonly referred to as a Prosecco method. But because we like to be innovative at Okanagan Crush Pad, we actually use state-of-the-art Charmat tanks, which are designed to lie on their side, so the wine ages much like traditional method sparkling wine would age. Because of this, we get some beautiful toasty and creamy notes in this wine. One thing that you will notice that's a little bit different is that we use a crown cap instead of using a cork and a cage and a foil. The reason behind this is we want to be a sustainable winery and have as low of a carbon footprint as we possibly can. By using just a crown cap, we're actually using half of the amount of metal that you'd find with more traditional enclosures. Beyond that, there's also no risk of cork taint, which actually affects quite a few wines that use cork. So we want our wines to be as clean as they possibly can and also have as low of a carbon footprint as they possibly can. Now, it's very easy to open a crown cap bottle. You just need a crown cap opener, and you're going to notice that you still get that nice celebratory pop that you would get from opening a wine with a cork. So when we pour this wine, you're going to notice that we have 2 different glasses. We've got your traditional flute glass, which a lot of people like to enjoy their sparkling wines out of. And then we have a more classic version, which is the coupe. Now, the reason behind the flute is it's visually very appealing, right? You can see the bubbles rising to the top of the glass. It also traps a lot of the aromas. Personally, I'm a little bit old school, so I like using the coupe method. Whether you're using the coupe or the flute, when it comes time to enjoying this wine, make sure you bring in a bit of oxygen with the first sip. So take the wine up. Right off the bat, I'm noticing this wine is very well balanced. You get a touch of sweet red fruit paired very nicely with some acidity. You're also going to notice what's called the mousse in sparkling wine, which is the reaction that the bubbles have in your mouth. They can sometimes be very aggressive, but for this wine, it's a very lovely creamy mousse. This wine will be very food friendly as well. You could pair this with shellfish, but I think this does really well on its own. So this would be great before a meal. And remember, sparkling wine is not just meant for a celebration. Sparkling wine is food friendly and something that should be enjoyed on a regular basis. Now, when you're done with your glass, if you don't make it through the entire bottle on the first day, you can always stop it with one of these handy sparkling wine stoppers. And from what I've been told, this will be just as good the next day, but I usually do get through the bottle on the first day. The next wine we have in our virtual tasting is a 2019 Savvy Gris. As I mentioned, there's 4 different labels that you might have had with this wine. Personally, I've got the one that depicts a UFO abducting Bizou Yukon and some sheep. Now, despite the fun label, this is actually some seriously made wine. It's made with wild yeasts in concrete tanks, which reflects Matt Domain's winemaking philosophy. It's also a blend of Pinot Gris and Sauvignon Blanc, where the idea was to make the Pinot Gris just a little bit more interesting. Now, these are 2 varietals that aren't commonly blended together, but as you're going to notice, they're beautifully blended together in this wine. You'll notice that the Sauvignon Blanc really shows through on the nose, where the Pinot Gris is a bit more present when it comes time to taste the wine. So again, we'll give the wine a bit of a swirl, bring it up and give it a sniff. So straight away you're getting a lot of Sauvignon Blanc aromatics. You're getting some gooseberry, some passion fruit, even some green herbaceous notes on there as well. And when it comes time to tasting the wine, make sure you bring in some oxygen and you're going to notice the Pinot Gris influence. So the acidity is nice and high, but not as high as just a pure Sauvignon Blanc would be. The Pinot Gris brings the acidity down a little bit, adds a bit of body to the wine, as well as adding some tropical aromas in there as well. So a very nice balance of the Sauvignon Blanc and the Pinot Gris when it comes time to the palate of the wine. This also makes it very food friendly. I think this would go incredibly well with salad, with a lot of different cheeses. You could even have this with a white pasta sauce. Personally, I think it would go very, very well after a long day of herding sheep. The next wine in our virtual tasting is a 2018 Pinkie Rosé. As I mentioned, you will have one of 4 different labels in front of you. The one that I have here has butterflies on the front. This is actually a shout out to the integrative pest management techniques that we use at Garnet Valley Ranch. This allows us to avoid the use of chemical herbicides and pesticides to protect our vines. When it comes to the color of rosé, a lot of people think that the darker the rosé, the sweeter it's going to be. And this is actually untrue. The color of the rosé is actually a result of the type of varietal being used and often the amount of skin contact used in the winemaking process. When it comes to rosé wines, you can use almost any varietal. I've had rosés made from Gamay, Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, you name it, I've probably tried it. But when you blend several different varietals together to make a rosé, you get a little bit of the best of each varietal in the finished product. And that's what we have with the Pinkie Rosé. It's a blend of several different varietals masterfully blended together to create a balanced finished product. Now when it comes time to tasting this wine, first off we want to give it a bit of a swirl, bring the wine up to our nose, and straight away you're going to get a lot of red fruit jumping out of the glass. I'm getting red berries, some strawberry in there as well, almost even a little bit of herbaceousness. Now when it comes time to taste the wine, remember to bring in a bit of oxygen. So right off the bat, I'm getting some real nice acidity in that wine. Beyond that, I'm getting those red berries, almost some sweet red fruits in there. But keep in mind, just because these red fruits are sweet red fruits like strawberry and cherry, that doesn't mean that the wine itself is going to be sweet. This wine is quite dry. So we're not getting sweetness on the tip of the tongue, we're getting some nice acidity in there, and that makes this wine incredibly food friendly. This would go well with ham, with turkey, with a winter stew. This is great Christmas wine. And as I said before with the Bizou Bubbles that we had, sparkling wine is not meant to just be drunk for celebrations. Rosé wine is meant to be drunk year-round. It's not just for sipping on a patio in the summertime. Rosé wine is incredibly food-friendly. And this wine is a perfect example of that. So please, if nothing else, remember, rosé wine should be drunk year-round. The final wine in our virtual tasting is a 2018 Savvy Franc. Now a lot of people think that if it's a red blend, it must be inferior to a single varietal red wine. They think that if it's a Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Cabernet Franc, it must be better than a red blend. But this actually couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, some of the most prestigious and expensive wines in the world are red blends. When it comes to Bordeaux, for example, it will almost always be a blend of Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and or Cabernet Franc. Where one varietal might be lacking in something, let's say Cabernet Franc is lacking in body, Merlot will add. Where the Merlot might be lacking in tannins, that's where the Cabernet Sauvignon will add some tannic structure to the blend. So the art of blending is actually an underappreciated art form when it comes to the winemaking process. And that's exactly what we have here with the Bizou Yukon Savvy Franc. It's a blend of Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Cabernet Franc. So you're going to notice that this is an incredibly balanced wine. Now when it comes time to smell the wine, we'll give the wine a bit of a swirl, bring it up. Straight away you're getting some savory raspberry notes. I'm getting some mocha, some anise, some black licorice. Right, this is a very, very concentrated and complex aromatic profile on this wine. When it comes time to sip the wine, remember to take in some oxygen. And again, you're getting a lot of those same flavors. I'm getting raspberry, I'm getting some earthy notes in there, I'm getting some anise, black licorice, the mocha again. This is a very concentrated and complex wine. You're also going to get some finely integrated tannins in there. This doesn't go through any oak whatsoever. It goes through a wild fermentation and is aged and fermented in concrete, which makes it quite complex and delicious. This wine is incredibly food friendly as well. This would go with steak, this would go with a red pasta sauce, or as you're going to notice the label says, this is paws down the best barbecue partner you could find. Thank you for joining today's virtual tasting. I hope you enjoyed the wines as much as I did, and maybe even learned a thing or two about regenerative farming practices and the important role that Bizou Yukon play. Now, if you want to learn more about the wines or follow along with the adventures of Bizou Yukon, please visit us at OkanaganCrushPad.com. And if you come up to Summerland and visit us at the winery, you may even be lucky enough to meet Bizou Yukon yourself. So Bizou and Yukon were working dogs. Yukon took his job very. Okanagan Crush Pad have been pioneers of organic viticulture from quite some from. Co-owner of Okanagan Crush Pad would down at our certified organic winery, we're also one of the first ones to use. Wow, that one was just going haywire. I always like to see.
What do you like to see?
Now when it comes time to enjoying the sparkling wine, whether you're using the coupe or the...
You're good?
No, I'm not. But to me, it's a perfect wine to sit back and relax after a day of herding cattle. I have the one that depicts a UFO example of the integrative pest microphone. Use that as a blooper. Microphone. The darker the rosé, the sweeter it's going to be. The drier the color of the rosé, Blend of several different varietals, including a white wine grape. Make rosé from almost any black grape varietal. We're getting some fantastic aromatics in this wine. We're getting some brambleberry.